Hey everyone, it's lunchtime. I'm Paul Mitch and I'm joined by Sam Walker. Let's talk about Liverpool news. There's plenty of bits and pieces. Inevitably, transfers are going to be a central focus, or a lack thereof, because that's how Liverpool roll.
Loads leaving.
Yeah, absolutely. So good at selling footballers, less good at buying them. But we'll start. Virgil van Dijk named in the PFA Team of the Year. I'd not even thought about this until I saw the pictures. I'm just so made up that he gets the recognition, because I think the biggest issue with Virgil van Dijk since coming into the league is that he set the bar, and almost like everyone's fell beneath that bar almost since he came into the league, that he doesn't get credit for being that good, that consistently. So I love it when he wins awards.
Absolutely, and I think it feels a long time ago now last season, doesn't it? And just because we had a tough time at the end doesn't mean we had a fantastic season, and Virg specifically had a big season. Even just look at how he's worked with Quanta to help and develop him. He's a fantastic role model, captain and player. And I think he deserved to be in that team. And you know what? Sometimes they don't always get them right, those teams. Even this year's one, you could argue bits and pieces there. But Virg is just a stalwart. And I saw something now. Is it Rio Ferdinand's the only defender who's been in more or something like that? So he's, a big year this year, and he can be sort of taking that crown as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic player. Just hope I assume there's going to be more to come.
Well, there's at least
one
more season left to come. Again, we're laughing through the tears. Nobody played more minutes for Liverpool last season than Virgil van Dijk. 4,073, 48 appearances. Just amazing when you consider that he should have been slowing down, and having had the bad injury and then coming back and then maybe having a little struggle in the season after he came back. To see him right back at the pinnacle of the game again, very, very good indeed. For those of you who want to know, did you know the rest of the PFA 11?
I think Kyle Walker was in it, wasn't he? Saliba, absolutely. By the way, Saliba and Virg were by far and away the best two. Didn't he shoehorn another centre half in? Was it Gabriel?
Yeah.
I get it, but I don't understand that. Who's playing left back? But this is the way to do these things, isn't it?
And
midfield, Rice had a good season.
Yeah.
Rodri, of course. Who was the other midfielder? Odegaard. Yeah, he was really good. Fair play. Who was at the front line? Palmer.
No. Palmer didn't make it into
how can Palmer not make it?
He won Young Player of the Year, but didn't make it into the Team of the Year. Haaland, obviously.
Yeah.
Foden, obviously. And Ollie Watkins was the other one.
I like the Watkins thing, but
Do you know
I
the
just
goal
think...
he was?
Yeah, it was Raya. I saw that. But see, that kind of makes sense because he won the Golden Glove.
Yeah, fair enough.
If Alisson doesn't get injured, I think it's just Alisson. I think that's just the way it is. But these things are mad. It's a bit like the FIFA where they have mad systems just to shoehorn them in. I'm always of pick a system, pick a team to it, and crack on. But
they do this with the FIFA Best Awards and all that kind of stuff. Where they end up with 3 at the back and 5 across midfield. And
Ronaldo right wing back.
100%. It's trying to find a way for the last 15 years. Well, not shoehorn them in for 15 years. For the last 5 years prior to them obviously leaving Europe, trying to find ways to make sure Ronaldo and Messi remained in that at all costs. So good on.
Palmer for me. Wow, that's he's ex-City Chelsea player, so we're not biased, are we? But he's a fantastic player. He should have been in that team.
Absolutely. Okay, sound. Let's move things on. Mamardashvili, the transfer saga of the summer that no one asked for. This is Anfield.com. Liverpool are now close to signing Valencia goalkeeper Virgil Mamardashvili, set to land him from Valencia in a deal worth around 34 million. Their first signing this summer. I believe he's going to go back on loan to them for the rest of the year.
Right, yeah.
There's not much else to really add to this, is there? It's Liverpool looking down the line, identifying that they're going to need probably a really good goalie at some point. If Alisson's staying for another year, which it looks like it is at least, we don't know what's going to happen with Kelleher just yet, but there haven't been clubs beating down a path to his door so far this summer. So Liverpool seem fine, but that doesn't mean... the goalkeeper position is one of those things that's not a problem, and then very short if it becomes a huge problem. So this looks like they're preparing for that.
All you have to do is look at Real Madrid last year, and I know they're not selling Courtois, but they lost him for a long time, and they suddenly had to bring in an emergency loan who didn't do a bad job, to be fair, but it can become a massive hindrance, that level of player. For me, it's what I find interesting about this deal is when we brought in, say, Kelleher, Van Den Berg, any of these other players that we've loaned out, brought in, then loaned out, even Elliott, albeit a lot younger, they've come in for smaller fees.
Yeah.
We're paying for this guy, as much money as we paid for Konate, as much money as we paid up front for Diaz and Gakpo and Jota, obviously the add-ons come into that. But this is a significant amount of money for Liverpool Football Club. So if we're going to pay 40 million euros for a goalkeeper, it's quite a serious acquisition. And I think because he's not coming in this summer, no one's really considering that, taken seriously. So there's clearly something either in the works, or they really, really think this guy's top draw, because to pay that much money for someone that's not even going to play for you for 1, maybe 2 years is quite a big statement.
No, I think that's really interesting. You know what? It's funny because I must admit I've just not had the level of emotion involvement with the transfers this time around, so it doesn't bother me as much. But I look at it quite coldly and say, well, Liverpool are future proofing. But actually, you're right. That is a huge amount of money. I mean, it's obviously not Alisson money, but that'll be the most we've spent on a goalkeeper outside of Alisson, and yet we're keeping him at Valencia for another year if this all goes through. I get it, and the obvious response, without even looking at the comments, I can guarantee someone saying, yeah, but what about now? What about this year? But that is the one thing, is that sometimes it does feel like Liverpool aren't completely all over it for the current season, but they never stop trying to future-proof. We never stop youth development or youth acquisition, and it's a really outside the box one, and very, very this is actually a bit more and beyond. I mean, Naby Keita and Origi are the two that I can think of where we've done this previously and let them stay at the club for another year. Neither of them particularly hit the highs, but
there's a few, isn't it? There's the ones that have gone the other way, like for instance Courtois was a good one, but even goalkeepers that have left on loan and then joined teams full-time, Raya, Szczesny at Juventus. A lot of these goalkeepers do sort of do that, sort of either make a move later on or make a move and then come back. I think it's good business. What I find interesting to that is I was watching a short interview on, I think it was on X the other day or Twitter, when Ornstein was talking to someone about Liverpool, and he said one thing you've got to remember about these top clubs is that they're planning a year ahead all the time. They're meeting in October, November to plan for next summer, and he was saying, like, whether you want to call it excuses, reasons, whatever, we haven't had the opportunity to do that. So this is the first steps of us doing that. We're obviously trying to act now, sell and buy and whatever, but this is part of that. So we're starting to plan for now as well as next year now, and you're seeing that happening. It's
just frustrating, so I don't disagree with that, by the way, because I think that there's definitely something to that, when the people who make the decisions of what players come in don't technically start the jobs until like 2 months ago or 2.5 months ago, if that. That's definitely going to have a knock-on impact, although they've obviously tried to soften that blow as much as possible. But I do get the frustration of, it's a year of our lives. I think that's where most people's anger comes from, is the feeling that you're almost, it's great that you're future planning, but I've got to live a whole year of my life. I've got to watch 38 Premier League games and how many Champions League and Cup games that we might be undercutting our ability to win silverware at the end of those by not acting now. So I always seem to fall between. It pedals of being able to see things from multiple sides. But look, I mean, this is Valencia's first choice goalie. I think he played 37 times in La Liga last season. 37 times in all competitions last season. They finished 9th in La Liga, so we know Valencia are a good establishment. Yeah, I'm not against it.
They were struggling at one point, weren't they? There was worries that they were going to go down.
I just thought, again, these things can be mutually exclusive. I think Liverpool can be doing shrewd, intelligent, big business that doesn't, but then I can also think that they're being a bit daft by not strengthening the team for this season. And
it'd be sensible to think that, like, everyone seems to think that you only do one thing at a time. But that's not always the case. There's multiple people in the jobs. There's multiple lawyers, solicitors, etc. that are involved. So why can't we be talking to Valencia as well as doing whatever they're doing? Because they're clearly able to have a conversation with Joe Gomez, which I'm sure we'll come to, have a conversation with Sepp Van Den Berg, which we'll come to, and also have a conversation with Valencia, and potentially Trent, Virg, Salah, whatever's going on there. Like, these things don't have to be done one at a time. The difference is they just hit the news one at a time. So I'm sure that they're trying to do whatever it is they're trying to do, but they're also trying to get Mamardashvili.
Yeah, we can look. And the thing is, you can invent stories because none of us truly knows, and you can spin those stories one way or the other. So you could see it as part of a nefarious plot by the ownership group to rob money from the football club, or you could see it and say, like the contract thing, I would want to make sure I had all my transfer business done before I started negotiating, contracts, in so much as you want to know who's on the market, who's available. Because ultimately, if you can get the guy who you know is going to be, let's say, Salah's replacement, if you know you can sign him, then maybe you don't want to be signing Salah down to a 3-year contract, which seems fucking crazy.
When
you actually think about it. But I'm just, again, all I'm doing is spinning potentials and reasons, and I know often they come across, they're positive ones because that's just who I am as a human being. But you might want to see where it lies, because you might decide your money's best apportioned elsewhere before you start throwing out mega contracts and signing on bonuses and all that kind of stuff.
And to add to that, there's a date where we can't sign players from or sell players from. So actually, they should be prioritising. If they feel a need to bring people in and sell players, that needs to be getting done now, because effectively Trent could sign a new contract on the 29th of June next year or whatever it is that he, I don't want that. No. But theoretically, or in March or in January or in November, whereas we can't sign a player on September the 8th.
Yeah.
So they need to be doing what they need to do now, and then obviously deal with them concurrently or at least straight afterwards.
Again, it's just, I don't like making excuses for millionaires. Let them do, but ultimately there's people whose job it is to do these things, and I prefer to try and work out why they're making the decisions rather than jump to critique and criticism at every single sort of turn. Because anyone who's ever tried to do anything slightly outside the box or normal under scrutiny in life, if you tell everyone how you're getting on at every turn, people might think you're failing, when actually sometimes you've got to take 2 steps forwards or 1 step forward, back to take 2 steps forward, whatever. Speaking of which, Joe Gomez, this Anfield saying he's back in contention for the Brentford game despite transfer interest. Joe Gomez was left assessing his transfer options in the wake of being left out of Liverpool's first match they scored of the season, but a report states he's in contention for Sunday. Sky Sports have claimed he's training well and in contention. This is really interesting because, again, it goes down to a lack of information. Somebody was going to miss out on being on the bench at the weekend. That's what I was going to say, yeah. Because we've got lots of players.
We've got 21 senior players, haven't we? Like, if you look at seniors, there's 21.
And Gomez, I think because of how well Tsimikas has just performed in pre-season, I think he was fully deserving of being on the bench. And there is something to the early stages of a new manager where you're going, well, why would I put a right-footed left-back option on the bench? You know what I mean? When I've got a left-footed one and he'll just functionally perform the same things. I think as much as most of us will rate Gomez as better than Tsimikas in a general sense, and he's certainly worth more money. There's a meritocracy there where Tsimikas could probably feel a little hard done by not to have started that game because he's been there the whole pre-season. So maybe there was a little bit of that at play. Maybe there's a bit of protecting Tsimikas' value. I don't know, but I wasn't prepared to write Gomez straight out of Anfield because he wasn't in that one, although he's still being linked with the likes of Villa and Fulham, of course.
Yeah, and we don't necessarily know what conversations happen, but it seems as though the kind of language and things that have been said and Paul Joyce's wording was that it was more Gomez looking for an answer than the club saying, sorry mate, we don't want you anymore. I'm sure Slot would want to keep Gomez. He's an athletic player who's a good centre-back, a good right-back and a decent left-back. The balance of what he wants from his team seems at the moment as they want a left footer playing left back and doesn't cut inside, blah 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 blah. But I think this is more down to Gomez wanting to, and rightly so. He's 27.
Yeah,
he's won everything in 9 years at Liverpool. He's been through the mill, had an elite experience under Klopp. Why not now go and just be a first team player, try and get in the England team? I get it, but at the same time, is that if he doesn't get a club, rightly so, he should be competing. And he's just seen what happened with Quansah and Konate. Now, if he was to make the bench this week and Konate was to start and have a stinker, who's to say he doesn't get the nod, right? 100%. Joe, come in. This is a you game. I need you to chase him around the pitch when he gets in behind. So, you don't know what's going to happen. It's very early, as you mentioned. So, all these players have got a fresh start. We could end up finding a situation with Gomez as Van Dijk's partner in January because that's the way things have gone. Yeah. So, take it with a pinch of salt.
And that goes back to, we did this on the podcast on Monday, the fears around selling Gomez stem from a bit of this as well, of selling Joe Gomez or not necessarily buying someone in. You're leaving your squad
massively
weaker, because as you say, he's as likely to be in not because the manager's decided on tactical changes. The players are injured.
Yeah.
Like Konate, is he going to be fit and available for 55, 60 games this season? That would be a first if that was the case. But yeah, it'd be interesting. My sneaky suspicion, because we've got these 3 games prior to the season really kicking off, and I was doing press box yesterday. It was brought up by Becky Davies about how managers see this as an extension of pre-season. It's definitely competitive, but they're still getting their players up to speed. Like City in particular do this every year. They don't put their best 11s out in the first few weeks of the season because often they can't. They've not been training enough. And I just wonder whether Because like Harvey Elliott is an example of this. I was a bit surprised that he didn't start, but I now equally wouldn't be surprised if he didn't start again, or actually just as equally unsurprised if he starts and Szoboszlai starts on the bench at the weekend, because Slot's trying to keep a lot of footballers at a level, because once you get into September, the Champions League starts. There's a lot of Champions League football this year. He's going to need to use all of his squad. So there's no value in actually just running 11 players for 3 games, because you're going to find when that midweek game comes, you've got 6 or 7 of you starting 11 and not match sharp.
And without diving too much into the Champions League, it's going to be hard this year because you don't play teams twice. And the way the format is that it could end up being that you end up with some really tricky away games and tricky home games and stuff like that. So I think that they're all going to have to be ready, and they're all going to be utilised in some way. So you're absolutely spot on. I don't think it's an issue, and I hope the players didn't think it was an issue that they didn't play. The fact that he changed 3 defenders changes the outlook further up the pitch, obviously. But I think this week's going to be another example of that, of seeing what the team's going to be. Now, it may well be the same 11, and he just tries to build some sort of relationships between them. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's 4 out of the 5 subs are different than they were last week, again, to get minutes in the legs. Yeah, it's fascinating, and I think what Slot's doing, obviously outside of what the club are doing, what the team looks like, the way it's developing, this extension of pre-season. But I would actually say for us, it's only 2 games because of that Lumen game just before the international break.
Sure.
So I think it's 2 games. So he's probably going to try and get the most out of these 2. And then Man U's got to be on job.
I think that's fair. I think you're right. I think the lads who were firmly in contention probably get more of a look in up against Brentford. And then you've got Man United, and you've got everyone as ready as they can possibly be. And also it makes it harder for Ten Hag to work out what Liverpool's going to start in that. So there's a real benefit actually to, I don't necessarily say start Gomez against Brentford, but you could easily see him on the bench and see Quansah not involved, or another couple of different situations. Right, just to continue with the miserable mood, at centre goals, quoting Ian Doyle as saying, just in, as things stand, Mohamed Salah is set to leave Liverpool on a free transfer at the end of the season. So we did a big bit on this on the pod this week, talking about would you rather let Salah have the send-off that he deserves? And I mean that by, we've given send-offs to so many of the great players of the Klopp era, at the end of the season, given the guards of honour and they've framed pictures of the trophies and all that kind of stuff. Or would you rather cash in on Mo Salah while he's still got a value? And obviously the third option is just to sign him down to a new contract.
Yeah.
But given that doesn't seem expressly likely at the moment, would you be comfortable seeing him leave on a free if he got one last great Salah
this
season?
is it. I jokingly asked a bunch of lads I speak to every day about footy what they would exchange for all 3 lads not signing. What would be your deal with the devil? Would it be the Champions League and Premier League double? Would that be enough? Would it be it's outlandish to say a quad, but we almost did it once. But that's kind of the same thing with Salah, just on a certain more microscopic view, is that what would I exchange to lose Salah? If you could give me one of the big 2 trophies this year, I think I would say, and get everything out of Salah possible, given what I know about some of the data from what the likes of Chris and some of the other people that I watch are saying about Salah, and about how we're doing things slightly differently now, never mind next year. If you could give me one of those big 2, I'd happily cry my eyes out on a sunny day in May to see Salah leave. Because we might sign Salah down and not win the Premier League for the next 3 years anyway, because Man City exist and Arsenal are very good and there's other teams. So if I could get 1 year and know that Mo would deliver me one of those big ones, I think I could take it at his age. Trent, different argument. But so I think for me, it's. I think Salah will have a good season. No AFCON. He looks fresh and fit, and he looks good under Slot so far. But I think for him to leave, I feel like we need to have something for it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, of the thing is, because we've set that path, because I was thinking today, at some point we're going to have to stop doing this. We're just going to have to start selling lads when they get past the best and bringing money in and bringing new lads in. But obviously they doubled down on great players, and ultimately Salah and Van Dijk are generational footballers. They're all so supremely fit, and they're still very much at the top of their games. Where you look at what's happened to Mane and Firmino and Fabinho and Henderson and Wijnaldum since they've left the club, they've all dropped off. So we obviously kept the best ones. If they do get let go, then you'd like to hope that we've extracted everything we possibly can. But of course, Trent is the awkward one in all this. Just give him his contract.
Yeah, he's
give
the
him
one.
Whatever the fuck he wants, because he's 25 years old. He's the best in the world at what he does.
Absolutely.
He's a scouser. He's on the pathway to being the next captain. Like, there's just, you might have to make him the biggest wage earner at the football club, which is then going to be an awkward conversation maybe in 3 years' time when he then looks for his next deal, and what can Liverpool do at that point? But cross that bridge when you get there.
Or they go 6 years, 3 years on this much, 3 years on that much. Either way, it's like getting a new deal anyway, if you do that, which he will do. Yeah, I agree. I think the Trent one's just over there on its own. It's just a no-brainer. It's like when Man U with Rashford. No, he's not had the best cup season. It's like, go deal with that.
Yeah.
Go and deal with that and worry about it when he's signed. You know what I mean?
It's just the thing with those aging players, and we've been there before, where Liverpool, the last great Liverpool side of the 80s, twice actually kind of hung on a little bit too long to some footballers and needed a refresh. They were able to keep it going until obviously Graham Souness stuff, where he changed a bit too much too soon, and that's a bit of a, you've got that fear too. You wouldn't want to be bombing 3 great players, and maybe Alisson could leave next summer, and all of a sudden you've lost actually the last of the old guard. Exactly. And that's not even touching upon the Trent situation as well.
But I think that's why the question I asked is really important, is that what happens this year is massively important. So that if nothing happens this year, then it's really difficult to deal with. If we do something special this year, one way or another, it's easier to go, wow, we've extracted everything out of them. The managers come in and deliver this. The club's looking good. We've got Trent on a deal. We can deal with that. Does that make sense? With Salah, I think Virgil is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and because that's the thing, they've got to be careful, because it's all well and good. And look, it's not my money, so for me, they're all getting new contracts. But we've seen Liverpool fight tooth and nail over this. I mean, the Jordan Henderson one caused a huge division in the top ranks at Liverpool. They didn't want to give Henderson a contract extension,
and he left when his contract would have run out anyway.
yeah, and Wijnaldum left, but Klopp sort his arse over the Wijnaldum thing a little bit. He wanted to keep him a little bit longer, and we've seen that happen. So there's all kinds of like politics behind the scenes of the club. Slot doesn't have that personal connection with those footballers, so that will allow them to do what they feel is best. The data people, or the back office, as they call it in the States. But as fans, I'm wary of letting someone like Van Dijk or Salah go when there could be 2 or 3 exceptional years.
Virgil's still the best defender in the world for me. Yeah. Him and Saliba are just the only 2 out there now for me. There's nobody anywhere near them 2.
There's every chance that Saka and Saliba are overtake them in the next year or 2 as the next ones in those positions, and Saliba might be on a par there already because he's so good. But that's fine as long as you've got players sprouting up elsewhere in the side. You can afford it. I'm always drawn back to the Last Dance, and to the Chicago Bulls, and at some point Jordan just stops being Jordan, and Pippen stops being Pippen, and you've got to move on. Now, hopefully, Liverpool can reshuffle the pack.
That's where the Mamardashvili kind of deals need to be put in place. So if we do bring in Jared from Everton, sorry, Blue Boys next door. That could be along that kind of thing. It's like, we're bringing you in, now to play for Liverpool, whoever it may be, by the way, and then you've got that planning in place almost. That's what we need to be doing, don't we? Rather than panicking whether Virgil's going to sign and he doesn't, and we're stuffed. Yeah,
well, it's an interesting one just to move things on. David Ornstein tweeting yesterday afternoon, Sepp Van Den Berg close to leaving Liverpool and permanent move, set to achieve 20+ million valuation. Brentford strongly considering the 22-year-old alongside likes of O'Shea / Ahmed. I've not said that right at all. Brentford are long-term admirers and solid relations with Liverpool. I mean, first and foremost, all I got was, are Brentford our new Bournemouth? Where we're just shipping these lads out for like the real money, really good, really good valuations, and maybe obviously guys who were fringe players for the club. But this is another one on the Van Den Berg thing. When Gomez was being linked away last week, I thought, well, does that mean Van Den Berg stays? If Van Den Berg's going to go, and look, Liverpool have dug in all summer on this valuation again. We can continue to be annoyed that Liverpool aren't signing players, but I can't help but you've got to be positive about it. If Liverpool, I've said all summer long, and Van Den Berg has kicked off at every possible given opportunity about his valuation. If we get £20 million for him, then it's good business, very good business.
Yeah, and it says 20 plus, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So there might be some add-ons. What I find fascinating about this as well is that Brentford are a big data club as well, aren't they?
Yes.
So they're not going to just sign Van Den Berg because Klopp phoned Thomas Frank and said, yeah, he's decent, Tim. He's got a bit of pace about him. Now, Mainz lads have told me he was good as well. It's going to be a case of they'll have looked at what he's done and how he's done and his development, and they'll see, something in him that they think can add to their team. You were saying, I don't know if you mentioned Leverkusen as well. That's interesting, that.
Yeah.
Because Tar was meant to go to potentially Bayern. That looks like it's off now, I'm told. One of the lads told me yesterday that hasn't happened. I thought it had gone through. They've got, obviously, a decent squad anyway because they played every single game possible and only lost one last season. So it's interesting that they want him. Where would he fit into their plans? But I would imagine if he goes to Brentford, he's probably got more chance of being a Premier League starter than if he goes and becoming a Bundesliga starter. I would imagine at this point.
Well, you say that, but obviously he's so highly regarded in the Bundesliga after the Mainz loan that you don't know. You really don't know, do you? I mean, again, it depends what people see as his ceiling. He's such an odd one for me because there's probably a world where he's playing for Liverpool this season, but actually the emergence of Kwanzaa, if he hadn't had that breakout season last year, we're probably bringing Van Den Berg back going, this is great. We've got a £20 million centre-half who's going to be maybe our fourth or fifth choice. Yeah. Absolutely smashing. Whereas in reality, what it's become is Liverpool's sort of backup ideal. Ideally, they send players out on loan so they can come back ready for the first team. But if not,
to get money.
Exactly. You bring in a wedge of cash and then you can go and do what you want to do with that. But again, if we could just spend that cash on some players.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's be looking at it from a human perspective. For Van Den Berg, he doesn't want to be sat at Liverpool playing cup games and sitting in the reserves after what he's done these last 3 years. He had 2 really good seasons at Preston. They loved him. Then he went to Mainz and broke into their first team, became one of their best players and one of the best players in the league in this position. So it's unfair to him, and it's very selfish for Liverpool to say, right, sit, we'll let you know we need you for the matchday squad in November, also when there's a few injuries. For him, he needs to go and further his career and play, and sometimes you've got to sell them. Look at Cole Palmer. He should be the benchmark for every young footballer that isn't sure whether to stay or go at a club. Be 5th choice or 4th choice, or go and become a star somewhere else. And you know what? I think he'll do well wherever he goes. The 2 clubs he's going at are very progressive clubs, or looking at. So, good luck to him if he does go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an odd summer, isn't it, for Liverpool, because of how many of those young players. It's like this crop now that's being harvested, and we've watched them come up, and it's a bit, we forget sometimes that we've got quite a few really good players who are in the first team squad now, more than most, and certainly a more fruitful crop than we've had for years. It was Trent for a little while, and then we got Curtis broke through, and then we've signed Harvey Elliott in the mix. But actually, just to see Kwanzaa and Bradley.
We've got 6, haven't we? If you Kelleher, Elliott, and then the 4 that have come properly through the academy, that's 6 of our young players who come at the club 15, 16 in the first team senior squad.
Yeah, and it's but it's still so odd to see. You go, I wouldn't have minded seeing Van Den Berg, but it's hard to recognise sometimes. But there was a year for our generation of watching Liverpool. Lads would move for $500,000 to League One or League Two, or you'd never see them again. You see, like the Adam Morgans of this world who end up down
City
in
Liverpool he's playing now.
Yeah, exactly. A brilliant lad, by the way. But like these lads who get first team games for Liverpool, youth players. What can they do? What can they achieve? And their future lies at lower levels. Whereas Liverpool are now buying lads, buying them because we bought Van Den Berg and we bought Carvalho in, but we're buying these lads in and moving them on to Premier League level. That's,
by the way, didn't Gomez cost us about 3 or 4 million? Honestly, by the way, something daft like that. So if we end up getting 50 million,
he's as good as a homegrown player because we spent so little and he's been at the club for so long. So again, to talk about Liverpool being good in the business, I understand feels like it falls on deaf ears because what we want to see is the money go.
What you would say, Paul, is that obviously the contract situations are their own sort of issue because of how high profile those players are. So I think they have to be shelved and they'll be dealt with. But if we're as good going out, we're back to doing this thing of selling players at good prices to good clubs and giving them a career again. It's kind of smart to think, well, we kind of must know what we're doing then.
Yeah, well, so, Liverpool are a sell-to-buy football club, which always makes people want to vomit out their eyes. But they need to generate their own cash, and what they were brilliant at. We used to joke about the Michael Edwards statue, and that wasn't for players he was buying, that was for players he was selling. When he was getting 20 million or 16 million pound for Jordan Ibe and 24 million or whatever for Ryan Brewster, and money for Brad Smith and Solanke and all this kind of stuff, we go build the statue, and that all feathered the nest, that allowed us to bring in brilliant players and actually pay better wages to the existing ones and keep that team together. They've got to get that up and running as much, and it's not sexy, but it's the stuff that powers the front-facing stuff as well. But again, just to reiterate, they need to get the front-facing stuff.
Can I just add something dead quick on the incomings? And this could be something that might just be absolutely hot air, but I wonder whether the club were opportunistic, being the way we hear a lot. But opportunities can come in many ways. We almost did a mad deal with Gordon and Gomez because of PSR. Now, clubs are going to be doing the same thing at the end of this window, in my opinion. There's going to be a lot of action that last week because money's going to be like, right, we better sell someone because we can't be banking on January mid-season, losing half our players. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're opportunistically moving in that last week to say, right, no, let's just use the example I used before, Brentford, which would be bizarre, by the way. But you're at Everton, you're about to go into administration. Here's 65 million quid for your centre back. No one else is going to pay you any money. You might see bits of that happen. You know, Edwards is that kind of that mover. So if it means waiting a week, he'll wait a week.
The problem is, and because I agree with that, by the way, but I'm also not going to sit here and tell everyone to wait.
Oh no, I agree.
It's all going to come together in the final 2 weeks of the transfer window, because that'll be foolish, and we
don't know what's going to happen.
Also, I just don't see any reason in getting people hyped up. I keep expectations as low as possible, and that's not to say I have low expectations of the demands of the club and where they're going to be, because I think they'll be good regardless. But you're right, we've seen that happen before. Alisson's the one for me.
Diaz as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was capitalising on an opportunity. But the Alisson one of like, no, we're reasonably happy with what we've got, and knowing that their targets, their transformative target, just wasn't on the market, or wasn't on the market at the price they were prepared to pay. And then all of a sudden he was, and they went for him. Kanate was exactly the same. They wanted Kanate. The summer before couldn't get him. They wanted him in January. They were trying everything to make that happen. They couldn't. So what did they do? They got loan signed. They got Ben Davies in to take Kabak. Told Kabak that he had a future at the football club, which was quite clearly a fucking massive lie. Just to get a half, decent footballer in for the remainder of the season, knowing Kanate was the move. And again, we don't know.
It's interesting, isn't it? And that's what's fascinating about it, is that it'll all unfold, I guess, one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely it will. And seeing Liverpool play football is the big thing for me, because I like the excitement of the transfer window when it starts. I like the speculation. It becomes quite tiresome and stressful because of the noise around it, and then the Reds come back and start playing footy, and then you can actually see and gauge for yourself how good they are. And look, we won the first game of the season. Absolutely. We won it quite well. We played some great football, and there's loads more to come from it. So yeah, we'll see how it develops. But yeah, I'm not going to sit here and tell everyone that don't worry, it's all going to come together. It might not, because I can think of as many examples where it hasn't as
it has. Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think that Liverpool are so stupid that my overall belief in it is that I think there's a very thin slice of footballers who are good enough to play for Liverpool to improve what we've got. Because I think there's tons of players who you can just buy and would hold their own and would play okay for us. But I think we'd rather play young players and get them to that level than buy players for that level. What's
the point in having another Endo and Tsimikas in the team, or another Gomez? You might as well get better or keep them.
Exactly. You could go and buy another right. You can go and buy another right back or another centre half or another left back, but you own those players already, and their ceilings might well be higher, and it's not costing you anything because you already own them. But I think if you're going to buy players, then they need to be better than what you've got.
Absolutely.
And at the moment, like Anthony Gordon is probably, I think as much of a muchness between him and Diaz
right now.
But he might be, him being a Liverpool fan, might give him a little bit more of an extra thing. He's certainly got more pace.
I was going to say the pace is massive,
and he scored a better Premier League goal scorer. So it would probably be a worthy addition. But then you work it out, and it's like, what's it worth? Is it worth adding a £70 million on top? For me, yeah, do it. Fucking do it, because I don't have to balance the squad and the squad harmony and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the midfield remains the interesting one. If you're looking for Rodri Mark II, then I don't think you're picking him. Yeah, exactly. And that's what you need. I think you need a Rice or a Rodri, a complete, can do absolutely everything midfielder to get into our midfield. Because if you've got someone who's just a destroyer, he's not going to get in the team. And if you've got someone who's just a passer and he's a bit lightweight, then he's probably not going to get it, because we've got a bunch of lads who are quite tigerish, who are good in possession.
And the lad Gravenberch set the bar. That's it now. Like if he, that's his level he's got to maintain, but it's also the level that someone's got to come in and maintain. Otherwise, like you say, what's the point? It is, like I say, it is going to be interesting. And my view is similar to yours. I think these people know what they're doing, and I'm willing to give them you know, they've been carefully selected. They seem like smart people. They come across well. They've got their CVs come up in the right way to get to where they've got to. And we were speaking about it, looking at like some of the stuff Ian Gaines put out in his book. Michael Edwards is an absolute don. He's a genius. He's revolutionised football in some of the input he's had to these clubs over the years. So if he's deciding upon the structures from the FSG level of the football club and the clubs to come, I think we'll do all right. Yeah. It's just hard to get behind that when
no. But it's
transfers and all that aren't happening.
Yeah, look, we do this every year. Honestly, 15 years I've been doing this. Where you every year someone tells me, and loads of people look at what other clubs are doing and hold that up as the model. But over the last 9 years, and I've seen that happen over 9 years as well. The only club that's done better than Liverpool in that time consistently over the last 9 years has been Manchester City, and we all know why Manchester City. Well, no, exactly. You know, and they've got 115 charges hanging over their heads, and I know Arsenal are coming forth. But also that happens. Yeah. You know, the clubs are allowed to do it in a similar way to Liverpool as well, which is what Arsenal are doing. But it might be fucked. It might be fucked, but it probably isn't.
We'll still watch the Reds, Paul.
We'll still watch and enjoy the Reds as much as we possibly can, because we've got no choice, because that's what it is to be a fan of a football team. Right, cool. Drop a like if you enjoyed this video. If you want more from us, do check out redmenplus.com. And if you want to come and see us live in the flesh, we are at the O2 Arena in London on the 4th of September. Tickets selling fast. Just type Redmen Live London on the o2.co.uk website there, and you can get your tickets for that. Anyway, thank you so much, Sam, for taking the time. Enjoy the rest of this wonderful day, and we'll see you all soon. Ta-ra.